reason that I made this video is that I want to tell you how Jesus changed my life and how I've seen him change other people's lives. When I grew up trying to be a good person, doing what I was supposed to do, but I kept finding myself doing things that I knew were wrong. When that happened, I started to make excuses for why, in my case, it was okay for me not to do what I knew was right. But I still expected everybody else to do what was right. As time went on, I kept making mistakes, and those mistakes hurt myself and other people. As the years went on, those mistakes accumulated, and I finally reached a point a little after I was 30 years old. My health was failing, my finances were failing, and my relationships were failing, and I was just miserable on the inside. I looked happy on the outside. I kind of lived in a grayscale world where I really didn't feel pain, but I never felt joy. I went on this way, and I decided that I was working 2 jobs, and I didn't have any spare time. I thought, well, I just needed more fun. And so the most fun thing I could think of, knew about, was sex. So I subscribed to Playboy magazine. And I began to read the articles as well as just look at the pictures and the jokes. And after about 6 months of reading those articles, I realized that they said that if you could benefit me, well, you were valuable to me. But if somebody came along and could benefit them more, then I was of no value, and that I was to look upon other people exactly the same way. What could I get out of the relationship, and not what could I give? And I had absolutely no intrinsic value to myself or to anybody else. That just did not sit right in my heart. So I gave up on fun. I began to go back and look at the Bible. So I traveled for a living, spent hours and hours driving in the car, so I'd listen to people preach on the radio. At night, I would sit down and I would read the verses, and usually the whole chapter where they quoted a verse from, and think about what we're saying, and read the Bible in general. Eventually, I became convinced that yes, God is for real. And so I began to talk to him about all my problems. And this went on for about a year. So one day I'm driving home, talking to Jesus, telling him all my problems. And I heard him talk to me. It sounded like he was in the passenger seat. I looked, but I couldn't see him. But I heard his voice and I recognized it. He said, "Relax, I've got you, you're mine. You do what I tell you to do and everything will be all right." Immediately, it felt to me as if I was being filled with warm honey starting at the top of my head, and it filled my whole body, and I just was filled with this warm, happy glow. And for the first time in my life, I knew love, peace, and joy. And I fell in love with Jesus right then, romantically, passionately in love with him. And he changed my life. Well, then I began to tell everybody that I met how wonderful Jesus was. And I just could not understand why everybody wasn't as interested in seeing Jesus as I was. And I'm still that way. But I kept on because I knew Jesus. And I have a love for people that I didn't used to have. And that spilled over, and I came to Jesus. I got into ministering to people in jail, and I saw lots of people be born again, and I saw some people who were sick that were healed, so I got to do some things. So this went on for many years. 2009 marked the next big change in my ministry. The Lord opened the door for me to go to India and to preach this Every Believer's Ministry message there. And the first place that I went was in Punjab State, and to a congregation of people that were from a Hindu background. They'd all come out of Hinduism, Hindu religion to Christianity. And so I preached that it's God's will for every believer to be a minister, to be a king and a priest, to do the works that Jesus did. At the end of that time, we had a ministry time. People had needs that they wanted ministered to, and God moved there just mightily like he had in Kenya. And at the end of that time, when we were all done, I asked if anybody would like to learn how to be a minister that was not a minister. a bunch of people did, so we arranged to have a meeting at a home the next morning. In their homes, they have like little courtyards, so we had this courtyard full of people. There's probably 80 or more people there. And so I taught for half a day on every believer's ministry and how we're all called to do that. At the end of that time, we had lunch and we had a ministry time. But that night, we went to another place. We went to a Sika village, and we met inside of a Sika home. In this Sika home, the walls were like 30 feet tall, masonry walls. And it's like about a half a football field square inside this wall. And there was over 280 people in that meeting. And again, I presented every believer's ministry. And at the end of that time, I said, is there anybody here that needs something from Jesus? And I could just see this forest of hands up out there. And I said, well, was anybody that was in this meeting this morning here tonight? And about 40 people came up. I said, well, now what I taught this morning, God will work through everybody. We all have the same spiritual equipment from God when we're born again. So you know what to do, and all these people out here need to be ministered to. So I want you to go out and minister to them. So I stood back and watched them go minister. It sounded, all these voices broke out, it sounded like bedlam. And I thought, oh my God, this thing is out of control. And God said, no. He said, pick out voices. And I started to pick out voices, and I could tell every voice that I listened to and focused on was very intent. Anyway, in about half an hour, 45 minutes, it got quiet. Everybody had been ministered to. And the thing was that out of that thing, those people got ministered to by Jesus. Jesus got all the credit for it, not me, because I'm this big hero coming in from the outside ministering. They got the credit for it. And those people that had never ministered before, they were on fire for Jesus. And they knew that they could do the works that Jesus did. And they kept on doing the works that Jesus did. And the man that had been leading that as an apostolic worker, he said, man, it just vitalized and revitalized, and that thing grew, and they were very profound change in the thing. So I began to write down the things that I taught, because I go and I come. And, we tend to forget what we've heard. So I wrote down everything and kept writing it down. Jesus told me that most of what he taught his first apostles was lost because people didn't pass it on. And there wasn't anything written down that they could refer to. So he had me to begin writing what I was teaching, and it became Every Believer's Ministry book. I wrote this book initially and primarily for people that I had ministered to, so they could check and see what all I'd actually said. They could compare it to the Bible to see if it was true, and then they could pass it on unchanged to other people. The thing that I teach in Every Believer's Ministry, first of all, is number one, we can do the works that Jesus did. Number two, we can hear from God, so we can hear what he wants us to do. And when I presented this to people in ministers, experienced ministers, that when they found out how to hear it from God, they said it changed their lives. So this book is important. It's been printed in English and distributed in India. It's now been printed in Hindi, and about 25% of the people in India can speak English, but about 80% can speak Hindu. And so when this book is printed in Hindu, it'll reach a much wider audience. So I want to tell you, in 2009, I started with one contact. Now I've got an invitation to go back to 7 different cities in India with about 100 ministers anticipated for each meeting. When I get there, when I sow into those ministers, they will pass on my message to a lot more people. If I preached a crusade, I would have an effect on those people right then, but I wouldn't be there to help them grow into disciples. I've watched crusades before. About 90 to 95% of the people that make a profession of faith in a crusade don't last. So I'm working to build people into disciples by doing this. And I believe that this is the way to do it. Now, for you, I want you to know that this book, Every Believer's Ministry, I will give it to you free if you ask me for it. I only ask of you that your prayers and support for me to carry Jesus and every believer's ministry message to the people in India, and to support me in doing this work financially. In the accompanying email, there's all the details about the rest of the ministry and my mission, so on, how to participate. Thank you. God bless. Goodbye.